I'd like to introduce you to the host for Asia, and also one of our speakers, and that's the amazing Ulrika Brunner, and she's the Chief Executive Officer for Inspire Group Asia. Ulrika has more than 25 years of senior leadership experience from across Asia, derived from a multitude of sectors that include learning and development, program accreditation, trading, logistics, publishing, FMCG, and cosmetics. Her primary focus has been commercial management with global brand names, listed multinationals, SMEs, and startups, creating forward-looking growth strategies, expanding businesses and teams across the region with a high energy and positive attitude. And I can definitely attest to that positive attitude, and I'm sure you'll agree with me once you've seen her. She is always keen for a new challenge and taking the lead in transformation that contributes to the advancement of the organisation, its bottom line, and especially its team members. At Inspire, which is a great name, Ulrika spearheads the development of Inspire Group's Asia operation, leveraging its huge international successes to establish Inspire as a market leader in life-changing learning and development in Malaysia and the region. This is a big challenge and requires strong leadership and entrepreneurial skills, positivity, energy, and resilience. Luckily, all key attributes that Ulrika is committed to bringing to her every endeavour. So without further ado, my honour, my privilege, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great, Matt. It's so good to see you, and hats off to you for keeping awake throughout the night.
Thank you. 2 coffees. I don't think I could do another one. So anyway, but no, it's lovely to see you. I wish I was in Malaysia, but sadly I'm here. But I'm going to hand over to you and to let you do your thing. And I'm really looking forward to the next hour or two.
Thank you so much, Matt. And again, thank you so much for having me as hosting this the Asia part of the Inspirathon. Hello and welcome to Kuala Lumpur as part of the Inspiring Workplaces Inspirathon. I'm Ulrika and I will be your host for the next 2 hours. I'm so excited to be here with you today to deliver local knowledge and to help to give the Inspiring Workplaces global community the needed inspiration, knowledge, and connections to change the world through the world of work and create your own inspiring workplaces in 2023 and beyond. This 24-hour global workplace Inspirathon is being hosted live, but it is also being recorded and it will be available on demand. Don't forget to ask questions and share your thoughts in the comment sections on your right through the talks. We'd love to hear from you especially during these two hours that we have with you. Make sure also to join the conversation on the Slack channel. Meet fellow inspirers and participants of this Inspirathon and share where you are. I'd love to hear where you are logging in from and what you do. Continue the conversation and most importantly, to be part of this growing community. Our channel is also where we'll see a lot of our networking during the breaks. And the link to the Slack channel should be here in the comment section. Everyone has automatically been muted so that we won't be able to hear you at all or any background noise throughout. So back to where we are now in Malaysia. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers for the Asia section. And I'm really excited to be here on behalf of Matt and the team and bringing these to you. But today we're going to kick off something slightly different. I was listening into some of the other speakers before, and we thought of doing it maybe a little bit more interactive. So I have invited my dear friend and awesome inspirer, also based in Malaysia, Surina Shukri. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Surina. She views herself as a venturer and growth catalyst. Her life story is an evolution. It's been filled with a series of dots that somehow have connected each other in unexpected, pivotal, and transformative life moments. Her life has been filled with many career and personal highs and lows. And she's the first in her family to accomplish many things, including graduating from an Ivy League university, rising the ranks on Wall Street, being a CEO and a national change agent, and speaking publicly on a global stage. Today, she is here in Malaysia, but wearing many hats. She's a non-executive independent director of Capital A, which is the parent company of AirAsia, and CIMB Bank, one of the largest financial services firms in the region, and Accelerate Global, which is a social enterprise tackling youth unemployment. She's also a founding member of Women in Blockchain Asia, or WIBA, whose aim is to develop women leaders in the space. She was the former CEO of Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC, as we call it here locally. It's a 500-person government agency tasked to lead digital transformation for the country through a changing political landscape and global pandemic, no less. She held senior leadership roles at JP Morgan Chase, the largest financial institution firm in the world, and including strategy and innovation in commercial banking. On a personal side, Surina is a two-time cancer survivor and is living with metastatic breast cancer. She believes in living her best life every day and inspires others to do the same as she continues to make an impact in the world. And I have witnessed this personally on the various occasions that I've had the good fortune of being in the same room and seeing Surina in action. She lives here in Kuala Lumpur with her husband and 3 children and intends to travel the world and connect with change makers and inspirers across the globe. All in all, she sees herself as a woman in progress. So welcome, Surina, and thank you for sharing this space with me today. It's so good to see you. Hi.
Hi. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to have a great session together, and Matt keeps saying, yeah, just enjoy it. You know, we're not rushed like so many of the other speakers. So thank you so much for making the time to being here with me today. So I just want, you know, you and I, we talked about to be talking about leading in the unknown. Do you want to say anything to set the scene before I have some questions that I want to ask you, but do you want to say something maybe to set this off?
Yeah, so I want to just, so the topic came up when we were talking about leadership. And of course, you know, my career, I've always been in corporate. I went to business school, undergrad. And so the topic of management and leadership was always a conversation. But what I've realized over the years is that we're in a completely different era now. What leadership means, you know, how you lead today versus how you lead 30 years ago, 50 years ago, it's probably a little bit different, primarily because business models have changed. For example, you know, if you go back to the 80s, you know, business models were all about, corporations, for example, were all about, you know, optimization. And so how do you reduce costs? How do you make something faster? How do you, you know, it was all about building, you know, and the name of the game, those who can actually, you know, optimize better, you know, faster, you know, that's how you lead. And so if you pick up a business book from, you know, the 90s, for example, they'll talk about GE, for example. So GE, big company. So it's all about like, how do you optimize? How do you do all those things? And so, so in other words, there's a process in there. The process is more clear. So if you're running a factory, how do you reduce your downtime? So there's certain things that you can do. And so, so it's a little bit, you know, so it's all about optimization. So there's a certain style of leadership that works there. Today, however, and I'm not even talking about today, like let's go back like 5 to 10 years ago, when everybody was talking about, hey, innovation, it's technology, it's change. There's all this, you start to see new business models. And so there's this whole idea of, hey, we don't know what the future is going to be like, because we've already figured out like the baseline playbook. There's no more playbook already now. And so the future is, you need to create the future. You need to create these new business models. You need to create new work environments. And so there's this concept of the business is unknown. And so what is your future growth going to look like? How do you innovate? So there's a lot of talk about innovation. And there's this concept of like, how do you lead into this unknown? How do you come up with where how do you come up with new you don't know. So you're being disrupted left, right, and center. And so how do you go about doing that? So this idea of leadership into the unknown. And then now, now we enter the era of, we've got pandemic. So we've just gone through 2 years of like, that is like major unknown. Is like right smack in your face. You don't know what this thing is, and there's a lot of unknowns there. And then now you enter, not only there's the unknown, there's geopolitical unknown, like what's going to happen. And then there's like climate change. And so there's all around. And so that today, leadership is all about, it's leading into this unknown. So how do you go about doing that? There's no playbook for this.
Yeah. So what do you think? Like, how could you prepare, or how can leaders prepare, all of us? How can we prepare for change? If we want to be inspirers, and lead, like, how do we prepare for that?
So there's a little bit of, so coming back to like if you take the old, like when you and I started our careers, there's this whole notion of the boss is always right.
Yes.
It's hierarchy. You show, you just, so there's no, and then the more senior you are, the more right you are.
Yes.
And so the better ideas.
And don't you question me.
Don't you question. There's a little bit of that. But now you have to embrace the fact that innovation is the name of it anywhere you are, because there's change all around. So how do you navigate this change? You have to think about new ways of doing things. And new ways of doing things, new ideas comes from everywhere, from all over the organization. So one of the key things that leaders have to embrace, how do you embrace this change? How do you embrace this unknown? Is the fact that you have to be vulnerable to say that, hey, I actually don't know. But, Ulrika is my senior associate on my team, and she knows, she's the expert here. So let's hear thoughts from her. And so it's this embracing that it's okay to be vulnerable a little bit and embrace the fact that, let's try something new. We don't know, but let's all do this together. So there's this whole, so the new model of leadership today is like embracing that vulnerability, that courage to be vulnerable sometimes, because sometimes you don't know. And so your best ideas from your organization could come from the most junior person on the team that just joined the team, but happens to know everything there is to know about XYZ topic that's new, and then can be part of it. So this whole idea of embracing, we don't know, so we have to be able to be nimble and adjust. So more adaptable, more flexible.
But, obviously we're here in Asia, right? So we're speaking from Malaysia. And I think, one of the things that comes up often when I talk to multinationals, et cetera, is, how do we need to do that differently in Asia?
Yes.
Is there, this maybe more traditional way of, respecting your elders, not questioning, or, it's very broad comments that I'm saying now, but
yes.
Is that something also that maybe is something to consider? Is that something that affects maybe this evolution that I think both you and I hope for?
Yeah, so absolutely. Because you cultural norms differ everywhere. But I think the good news is that all over the world now, because we've had things like the pandemic, we've got things like tech disruption, people do realize that, hey, there is somewhat of a need to change a little bit. So if, we're chipping away at, old school culture and whatever else, there's been chips. It hasn't completely cracked, but there are chips already. And I think that one of the most important things, especially here in Asia, that we need to all work on is conversing, is communicating, is that recognizing that voices and ideas come from everywhere. And so when you talk about inspiring workplaces, when you talk about organizations, like what differentiates a high performing culture here in Asia versus an organization that's not? In my opinion, it's basically the ability for people, the comfort of people how comfortable people are communicating, voicing
Yes.
their ideas.
Yes.
So
How do you create that environment where people feel comfortable to be themselves and to thrive? Because that can feel so foreign to a lot of the leaders that I work with, at Inspire Group. It's like it's. I mean, yes, you mentioned the vulnerability piece, but it's so scary, right? Because it is so different. So how do you create that environment where people do
okay,
feel comfortable
so
and the leaders feel comfortable?
yeah, so let's talk about the necessary ingredients. Okay, so it's almost like let's talk about it from a, so if this we were trying to improve our health, and so I think everybody pretty much understands, if you're trying to lose weight, be more healthy, there's certain things that you're supposed to do, like everybody knows you're supposed to eat healthy, you're supposed to exercise, so those
Yes.
core things. So I think that so what's required in and then how you do that is like something else. We'll talk about that. So it's the what you're supposed to do and then how you're supposed to do it. So coming back to like, how do you create this environment where people thrive? What's required? What are the ingredients that's required? I think number one, you have to create an environment where people feel safe. The psychological safety somewhat is really, really important to not just make sure that you have an environment that people want to perform, want to thrive, but it spurs innovation as well, because when you feel safe to voice your ideas, to speak up, um, um, you get more engagement that way.
Yeah.
So to me, like one formula that like I offer up, for people, for leaders especially, like if you ask, how do you create this? And certainly
Yes.
during my time at MDEC, which is all about driving change, and to do that,
Yes.
it's external change, it's external change, but internal change is most important. I say that it's 3 C's.
Okay.
The first C, it's conscious effort. So in other words, it's not going to happen by itself. So if you really want to create this environment, so you have to be aware first. So like if leaders aren't aware of the need to create a different environment, to create this like something's different. So if there's no consciousness and there's no
Yes.
conscious effort, that's not going to. So you need that conscious effort, and the effort also it's directed to increasing diversity in your organization, because
Being
you need
deliberate about it, right?
to be deliberate about it.
Yes. Yes.
And so because this diversity, you have other people, so it's you have an exchange of ideas. You feel more safe because perhaps you see some other people that are, if you're the minority, and then now you see some other people that are more like you, it's just better. So you have to make a conscious effort. You have to make a conscious effort to be diverse as well. Because one of the real pitfalls of organizations is when you have zero diversity, and then and you have, what ends up happening is that all around the table it's yes men. Somebody says something and everybody's like, oh yeah, I agree, because they all had the same experiences, and so then you get to the same outcome. So like my Putrajaya experience, for example, was a lot like that, because it's not a diverse environment. And I think that really thriving organizations, so you have to be a conscious effort. You have to be conscious on the diversity part as well.
Yes.
So the second C that's required is curiosity. You know what I mean by that? Because it's this curiosity on your teams, your people. Because at the end of the day, yes, everybody, your employees, your teammates, your colleagues, they all, first and foremost in the office, they wear their title first. Oh, I'm head of such and such. I'm manager, yada, yada. I'm this department, that department. But in order for it to create an environment where people feel safe, people want to perform, they enjoy being at work, you have to get to know other people. You have to know. So you have to be curious about your employees, not like curious busybody and all that.
Yes.
Like, hey, if you're a manager, do you know your team? What's going on? Like
That's
because
so interesting. I have this happen so often when we go into with leadership teams, and they say, "Oh, these guys are not doing what they're supposed to be doing." Yes, well, have you actually asked them what sort of challenge? Have you actually had a conversation? And usually they haven't. right?
They
They're
don't.
just making assumptions, and because the curiosity is missing. Like they're
There.
so bogged down. 98% of people are now, just working on just trying to survive, right? With being
Exactly.
burnt out. But it's having that curiosity or being inquisitive, right? It's so important.
So I always tell, I've had this philosophy, and I tell, that my teammates, my managers under me, is that you have to be curious about the people on your team to understand like what makes them tick.
Yeah.
What's going on? If you suddenly see a drop in, like what is that? Maybe there's something else that's going on in their life. Maybe they're so you have to be curious, and it's okay. So occasionally, before a meeting starts, let's just chat a little. Hey, how was your weekend? What did you do? And so from that, you're curious. You can start to pick up, cues in terms of like that person as a person. So you have to be curious about that person as a person, and so that will help people feel more comfortable, feel more safe. Otherwise, it's like just robots, and they hold themselves back, and this whole feeling of I don't feel safe, I don't feel comfortable in this environment. That also limits productivity.
One thing that just occurred to me as well, Surina, as part of that curiosity, because there was another earlier talk this morning where talking about culture, etc. So that the environment that you produce, but that often there's also a lack of awareness. So, for example, for a team leader, yes, we expect I would expect the team leader to be curious, just what you're describing, and being inquisitive and finding out what's actually going in the space of each of the team members. But it's also, I think, an important part of this process that doesn't very often happen is that for the leader to be curious of how they occur to the team member.
Yeah, that's actually
right. Because it's like so often it's like, we can ask you lots of questions, like you're married, you have children, but it's like, what are you seeing? Like when we're having this thing, like how do I occur to you, and can I ask you questions like, what could I do different, etc. Right? That's to build the relationship as well.
So this healthy curiosity that actually brings me so that point that you talk. It's the third C. Which is basically, well, it's CC, but the other C is basically you have to be prepared for and encourage courageous conversations.
Yes.
Courageous conversations. And so understand, like, first of all, because we rolled this out, but first of all, just labeling it courageous conversations, like difficult conversations. You want to encourage people to speak up. And so just calling it courageous conversations makes it, identifies it as actually, it's something that you have to do. And then it's almost like just calling it courageous. Oh, I had a conversation. It's almost like you feel good that you had that courageous conversation. But more importantly, as leaders, you want to set this culture where we want to encourage people to have courageous conversations, because you need to have that. You want to encourage people to speak up. So labeling it that actually, it works both ways. So for the person that has something to say, to actually step up, because sometimes there are instances where like people wait. They think that nobody asked, so I'm just going to stay here and suffer in silence because nobody asked for my opinion. This whole thing sucks, but I'm not going to say anything because they didn't ask. But you need to have that courage to have the conversation. And then as the receiver also, you have to have the courage to enable these conversations. So these are some of the things that's required, that to me, I think if you're trying to create an environment where people, we want to encourage innovation, you want to encourage dynamic performance, you want to continue to deal with this unknown, like how do you continue to deal with all these things? You need to have it's a conscious effort, primarily focus on diversity. You need to be curious about your people. And being curious about it also makes the environment more fun. And you need to encourage courageous conversations.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. So can you tell us how you have learned to navigate quickly evolving environments, because
Yeah.
you've gone through some very, very interesting experiences throughout your life in different parts of the world. So I'd love to hear, for you specifically, like, how have you navigated that?
Yeah. So I want to share like in that in two parts. So first and foremost, when we just talked about like, an environment of change. So how do you create how do you create a culture, a workplace um, that is okay with change? And so one of it is so it's a similar, like if you're trying to be healthy, lose weight, and all that. Sometimes it's very drastic. It's hard to just like do suddenly everything overnight. You can, like the Hollywood actors do that all the time. They hire the best nutritionists and the fitness coaches, and they completely just focus on that change, and then out comes, their six pack and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, but change without one of the most often things that's overlooked when it comes to navigating change is, I call it the sustainability mechanism.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that? So if you don't figure out a way to sustain that change, like how do you make that change sustainable, then you're going to go back to like status. You're going to go back to your
Yes.
old days. So sometimes when you're trying to navigate this environment, so you can do change, you can try small steps and iterate along the way. I find that that's actually quite helpful, because as you're doing that, you can start to build in your sustainability mechanisms into that process. And so as you're navigating, you need to create this lasting change by what's your how do you make this change? How do you keep this? Now you've got your environment, that you've got your 3 C's, but how do you make sure that you can maintain these 3 C's as well? So so that's one, figuring out so you can try, small steps first. So the analogy is like if you're trying to just be healthier, maybe start by cutting out your sugar, or just focusing on you target specific small goals, and then that will actually help. So similar in an organization, it would be that way too. Like, hey, let's encourage people to speak out in town halls. That's a small change, but it could have a big impact. So start with that. So your question is like, what? So in addition to that, like, what else is helpful? How have I helped in other organizations navigate this change?
Yes.
In addition to that sustainability mechanism, you also need a mechanism to, like, how do you monitor this change? Is this am I on the right track, or am I not the right track? Is it working, or is it not?
So like doing pulse checks, like making sure, checking in, whatever that is, like defining what does success look like and how will we measure it?
Yes. Yeah. So those are so again, like as it comes to organizational change, personal change, there are specialists. There's frameworks. I'm sure your Inspire group also helps organizations do that. There's certain practices, no different than the analogy of, okay, exercise, sit-ups. We know sit-ups are good, and so this is how you do a proper one. And so there are people that can help along that way on the process side of things.
I have one. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, but your question just now also was talking about so as a leader, how do you navigate this change? So we talked about the theory, how do you do it? But if you're the one that's actually, oh my God, you have to be the one that's leading this whole and being the anchor in this whole uncertain,
or on a board, and you are the one that wants to drive certain things in a different way, maybe from everybody else, because I keep thinking about that with your roles on the different boards, etc. I mean, that's quite a delicate environment, right, to make things move in certain directions.
Yes. And oftentimes we get like overwhelmed because especially like there's this hesitant to move almost. It's like you spend months and months and months like perfecting the deck.
Yes.
So do anything yet because we need the deck. Oh, the plan, and this and that and the other. But oftentimes what happens is really, it's not about the deck, it's about the execution. Anything that we do, it's all about the execution. And I think most people over-index on the planning and thinking. You need a vision, of course. You need a direction, of course. But you also need to just keep moving forward. And so that moving forward is key. So how, as a leader, do you find this courage? What do you do to just move forward? And especially these days when there's like, oh my God, gotta think about this and that, your digital, this one, your health, so many things. And so how do you keep moving forward? How do you stay sane? How do you even know you're on the right track? To me, I feel like sometimes instead of like going into like the analysis, which can get you stuck.
Yes.
It's basically, to me, my experience has been just focus on the next step.
Yes.
Take
the one thing.
The one thing.
Yes.
The next step. What is the next step? So that therefore, I always try to do this the best I can, and also encourage my team members. It's like never end a meeting without clarity on, okay, so what is the next step here? What is the next one step? So just focus on that next step.
Yes.
The next step. That's why I think, one of the things I did in the past, just to like make things interesting, but also like I studied improv comedy.
Oh, nice. Yes.
And the role that it plays, and in some themes that's applicable from that in driving innovation. And improv is all about, it's the unknown. You don't know what the skit's going to look like. You don't know what the thing is. So how do you continue there's no script. You got to make it up as you go. But the whole principle of improv comedy is it's two things. Number one, it's this whole principle of yes and. So you accept whatever the situation is and you build on it. And so oftentimes we, especially leaders, we have a yes, but approach. Like, yeah, that's a good idea, but blah, 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 blah. Yes. And so you get stuck that way. But if you have this whole yes, and, it's like, yes, and we can, this. Yes, and when we think about all the risks, we can do it. So it's this whole other approach. And the other big thing about improv is just you got to just continue to move things forward. And so it's no different in organization. It's no different in change. It's no different in how we need to manage life today, individually, on a personal level. Because there's so many I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you tend to get overwhelmed. And so there's so much change around. So how do you navigate? How do you find stability? How do you do this? And so to me,
do you also have people that are part of maybe a support? No, okay, this is going to sound more like mental health or whatever, but it's like more of a support system in terms of you were mentioning on the checking in to making sure that you're sort of on the right track and everything, but also on a personal level, because in what I've been seeing is, a lot of people, yes, they're getting burnt out. It's like, that's a real thing. Like leaders are, because they've got so many balls in the air, and it's like, okay, what is most important? What is going to make the biggest difference? Now, everything is urgent. And at the same time, we're recovering from COVID, and it's just, everything is different. But how do we as leaders also create, or how do you, specifics, like how do you make this possible with how you've stretched yourself over so many different roles and experiences, in terms of people that keep you real?
Okay, so there are a couple of themes in your question there. So one, what I heard was like, okay, so how do you are there peers? Like who do you draw your energy and your support from? So that's one. And then the other theme that I heard was that how do people know that so you're on track or not on track is usually you have this feeling of overwhelm. because there's
Yes.
so many things. Are you doing things right or not? And when I think about being overwhelmed, part of that emotion really is like feeling that you're wasting time.
Yes.
Because there's so many things
Yes.
going on, and so I don't even know where to start. And then am I working on the right thing? And then you start feeling guilty because, oh no, I should have done this, and I'm not productive, and you get stressed out over not being productive. So it's a lot of that. So I want to offer up a framework that may help. Because this is how I, over the years, because there's so many things. So this has been a framework that I've come up to help me feel more anchored and less overwhelmed in dealing with. All right, so there's so much stuff going on, and this is like a personal framework. There's some elements that you could probably translate to work as well. And so this is the remember I told you earlier, all right, I'd like for you to have a piece of paper. So we're going to have, so for those of you who are following along, you can take a piece of paper. And this is really an exercise to help feel a little bit more grounded, because I think part of the challenge as executives, as leaders, as parents, you feel like, I'm not doing the right thing right now. I'm supposed to be doing something else, and I'm not using. So where's my priority? Where's my focus? So there's this need to be a little bit more still and centered and feeling in control. Because oftentimes you don't feel like you're in control. Your boss is doing this, and you lose control because you don't know what you're supposed to do. Okay, so now, so simple framework. I've distilled it. So, and then what I'm going to do, just for fun, I'm going to try and explain and not show, and see if the instructions, if
clear,
or exactly the same or not. Sometimes.
Okay, I'm ready.
So piece of paper.
Yes.
Fold it in half.
Okay.
You should have a rectangle now, correct? Now, fold it in half again to make it, on not the long part, but the shorter part. Okay. Okay, so you fold it in half. And now it should be, a fat rectangle as opposed to a long rectangle. You got it? Now, then you take the center where the folds meet.
Okay.
Then you tear a small quadrant of a circle. Okay? Got it?
Yep. Yes.
Let's see what you came up with.
Can I open it?
Yeah, open it and show me. Yay! Okay. Okay. Except you fold it first on the long side.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So what I wanted to show is that, okay, here's this piece of paper. You basically have 4 quadrants.
Okay.
And this circle in the middle. All right. And so on these 4 quadrants, on the left side of the I want you to write the first quadrant, health.
Okay.
And so then the bottom quadrant under that, you'll write skills.
Skills.
Across from health, in other words, on the other side, write relationships.
Relationships.
And then underneath relationships, write the other thing that's important in life. So if you think health is important, skills is important, relationships is important, what do you think goes down in that bottom quadrant?
Health, relationships, skills. I want to say experiences.
Experiences could be one. But
what are you thinking?
Huh? I'm thinking money.
Yes, of course.
Money.
Yes.
So now you have a sheet of paper that looks like this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So health, skills, relationships, and money.
Yes.
When you look at this, every single facet of your life can actually be just distilled to this.
Yes.
And when you look at it, on the right, on the left side, the other thing that's interesting about this is health and skills are the areas that's 100% controlled by you. I mean, like not the outcome of it, but the action of it. So that is relying on you. So what you eat, that's what you eat. Nobody else does that to you. It's like what you put inside your body. Your exercise, it's like nobody else does that to you. It's what you do to yourself.
Yes.
So similarly, down below, skills, it's the same thing. Nobody else can do that for you. These are things nobody else can do for you. These are things that you have to do yourself. And so these things that you have to do yourself, you have to remember you're in charge of it.
And responsible.
And responsible for it. Nobody else can make you smart. You can get people to help you, but reading and internalizing thinking, that's you building up your skills. And so, and so at any given time, you know that you have to be balancing, you have to be focused on this quadrant, your health. Because if you're an executive and then you're stressed out, your mental health is not working, everything else goes.
It's gonna go,
right. So you have to. So that's health, and then skills. In this day and age, if we're not constantly thinking about skills, hey, what else can I learn? What else can I do? If I'm reading an article and I'm not like consciously, because there's also like reading and it goes one in and go out, and then like active reading. So it's skilling. So this whole notion of skilling, you have to be able to do that. And then on this other side, I want to say, these are, when I think about relationships and I think about money, these are things that you do with others. So there's an external element to that. But it's really important. It has an impact on you. How you manage your relationships, who you have relationships with, your network. Are you growing your network? Are you not growing your network? And so that's important. And then finally, money. And I specifically put on here because most of the time when we think about we don't think about money the way that we should be thinking about money. Money as in building your wealth and expenses and managing your expenses and whatnot, because you think that it's a site, you're not actively managing it. And so
sometimes it's considered like almost a bad word, right?
A taboo. That's right.
Yes.
And especially for women, like we're not taught to say, hey, you need to care about money, you need to manage, you need to invest. And so it has to be, another quadrant as well. And so when you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel that there's so many things outside of our control, actually no. And I don't know how to manage it. Actually no, because at any given time, so long as you're continuing to make continuous investments in this, your time is productive. So don't feel, so you are in control. And so it could mean that, hey, I didn't do anything today other than take a nap. Hey, but taking a nap is resting. It's restoration. It is actually healthy. You want to do that. So don't feel so guilty. Don't feel, because when it comes to, it is basically all of these things.
Amazing.
And so now I used to feel, before I used to feel overwhelmed. Like, oh, am I skilling enough? Am I doing enough? Am I networking enough? How do I finish? Oh, I wasted my whole day today. But then if you feel, hey, no, actually, I had a coffee chat with Ulrika. We had a wonderful lunch. And I was making an investment in that relationship. And so it's not time wasted, So this is it's a way of staying grounded.
Love that.
Now you're
so good. What's the whole? Yes.
Okay, so this is basically, all right. Are you ready for this, Ulrika?
Yes.
I'm calling this is the G spot.
I love that. Yes. Okay, I will take that. Yes.
And it's blank. And you know why it's blank? Because you're looking for the G spot. I'm just kidding. No, but really, in all seriousness, I call it the G spot because this is all, it's gratitude. So the center of all of this, to keep it centered, to feel like you're always going to have this hole in your life, feeling overwhelmed, not stable, and all that, if you don't have a sense of gratitude. And when you think about it, you need to go about saying there's so many things that you have. Oftentimes we think about all the things that we don't have, and you don't feel the sense of gratitude. But if you just go about your day and your life, just having the sense of gratitude, the whole thing pieces together. Gratitude for your
That's so
health,
powerful.
gratitude for your skills, gratitude for all the
Yes.
relationships that you have, even the
Yes.
relationships. You might
Yes.
feel that today you don't have opportunities, but you don't know your relationships. Your next job could come from your relationships. There's this notion
Absolutely.
your network is your net worth. So that's also
Yes.
in the other thing. So this whole sense of gratitude to hold everything together,
Gosh.
that's so you got to
This is just mind-blowing for me, and also this thing that to realize that this is us. It's like this is life, because
this is life.
we're always gonna have that. It's up and down, right? So you're not constantly, everything is not hunky-dory all the time. You're not in the gratitude space all the time, but to realize that as long as you're focusing on those 4 elements, you can actually bring yourself back and do it, if you do it deliberately, right? Consciously.
And sometimes it's okay because you feel that you need to run on all 4 cylinders all the time.
Yes.
Not necessarily, because sometimes it is important to just take, who knows, you're a burnt out exec, you just need to, like, you've made a decision. All right, I'm just going to chill a little bit. It's fine. My performance evaluation, I used to be, an E. Now I'm just like chill a little bit because I need to prioritize my health, or I need to prioritize, I need to really invest in my relationships. That's the other thing also. In career, sometimes there's many people who go about their workspaces, they work, and they're not investing in the relationships in the workforce. So we could have a whole other session, but over years, I think that it boils down. It's really this.
Beautiful.
It's skills, it is your network, and then it's the response. Like you have to prioritize money too, not like fanatically, but knowing that, hey, investing is important. How do you have these conversations? How to
plan, how to prepare, etc. Yes. Wow, this is what a gift you've given us. Thank you, Surina. I absolutely love this. I'm going to tidy it up because mine is a bit messy now. I'm going to tidy it up and put it here in front of my computer. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, I have one final question for you. If there is, if you can define one particular person that has been the biggest inspiration for you in your life, since we're here at an Inspirathon, doesn't have to be with work, but the one person that sort of stands out for you that has been the biggest inspiration, I'd love to know.
There's so many. There's so many, actually.
Okay, if you can choose 2, then I'll be generous.
So in the so as a young girl, because you have this notion of you can't see. There is this fictional character that I read in a book once, which I found really inspiring. So Cain and Abel, I'm sure many people would know that, and so there's a book called The Prodigal Daughter, and so the character is Florentina Rosnovsky Cain, and I found that she was the first character that I read or came across where she's self-made, like she's an independent, very courageous speaker, and was just doing all the things that eventually in the book she became president of the US, I think. But as a mom, as a as a businesswoman, as a student, like she was. So I was really inspired by that character because it showed that actually you can kind of be creative. There was creative thinking differently, and so I learned. I was very inspired by that. And then the other category of who do I get inspired by? Actually, there's not that just one person. I think like just generically across the board, it's entrepreneurs. Like I'm really very inspired by just entrepreneurs in general, because for you to be an entrepreneur, it takes a lot. Like it takes this courage, this whole different thinking mindset. It's just you're you're creating your own path. So
Yes.
so entrepreneurs across the board, I get very inspired by even like the most simplest, you know, entrepreneur. You know, it's not like, oh, Steve Jobs entrepreneur, yes, but like there's the whole category, because the fact that you're putting yourself out there, taking risk, and then just going at it, and sprinkling creativity and whatnot, you know, like I get inspired by that.
Thank you. That's amazing. Wonderful. Well, Surina, thank you so much for just sharing the floor with me today. It's so good. And I can't wait to catch up with you again live, hopefully over a nice meal again.
Yeah,
The
I would
last
love
one was
to do that again. And so I
good.
hope for all the audience out there, I hope that this you found a little this insightful too. Just happy to share whatever experiences I've had.
I'm really grateful for you to just being available and being here with us today. Thanks so much, Surina, and have a wonderful end to the week. And I will see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.